Elena Hartford stood outside the gleaming tower of Cross Industries, her hands trembling despite the expensive briefcase she clutched. 28 years old, CEO of her family's struggling textile company, Harvard MBA graduate. And she was about to walk into the office of the man who had destroyed her self-worth 12 years ago. The memory hit her as she stepped into the elevator. 16 years old. The Manhattan Summer Charity Gala. She'd worn a dress her mother had sewn by hand. Beautiful cornflower blue silk, but clearly not designer. She'd already fell out of place among New York's elite, but her father insisted she attend. Hartford Textiles needed the connections. Damian Cross had been 19 then, home from college, surrounded by his wealthy friends. She remembered him noticing her by the pool, remembered him approaching with that confident smile. She'd been too intimidated to recognize his awkward flirting, had stammered something dismissive and walked away. Later, carrying a tray of champagne glasses to help the overworked catering staff, she'd bumped into him. The crystal had shattered. Champagne had soaked his expensive suit, and Damian Cross had exploded. Of course it's you, Daddy's little charity case in a bargain dress. Let me guess, Hartford Textiles couldn't even afford to buy you something decent? They had to make it? God, how embarrassing. Do everyone a favor and stick to the shadows where you belong. The ballroom had gone silent. His friends had laughed. Elena had run, tears streaming down her face. She'd never forgotten, never forgiven. The elevator doors opened on the 42nd floor. Elena straightened her shoulders, smoothed her designer suit, Armani, perfectly tailored to her now slim figure, and walked through the glass doors into enemy territory. Damian Cross's assistant tried to stop her. Ma'am, you can't just... Tell Mr. Cross that Elena Hartford is here with a business proposal. He'll want to hear it. 5 minutes later, she was sitting across from him. Damian looked different from the arrogant teenager she remembered. 31 now, still handsome with sharp features and dark hair, but his eyes held something she didn't remember from that night. Wariness. And was that guilt? Elena, he stood, extending his hand. I've been trying to reach you for years. My calls, my emails were ignored. She didn't shake his hand. This isn't a social call, Mr. Cross. This is business. Something flickered across his face. Hurt, maybe, but he sat back down. I'm listening. Elena pulled a contract from her briefcase, slid it across his mahogany desk. Hartford & Company is vulnerable to hostile takeover. My father had a heart attack 3 weeks ago. While he's been recovering, our competitors have been circling. Victoria Sterling has been buying up shares. Your own firm has been mentioned in acquisition rumors. Damian's jaw tightened. Elena, I wasn't. I don't care what you were or weren't planning. She cut him off, her voice ice. What I care about is saving my family's company. 80 years of legacy. 300 employees. My father's entire life's work. How can I help? The question surprised her. She'd expected denial, deflection, not immediate willingness. There's a clause in our company bylaws, written in by my grandfather in the 1960s. If the CEO marries into a family with controlling partnership interest, the company cannot be acquired without the spouse's approval. She met his eyes, her own hard as emeralds. I need you to marry me. Damian stared at her. What? A business arrangement. 2 years. You invest $50 million to help me buy back controlling shares and stabilize the company. In exchange, you get partial ownership of Hartford & Company, access to our textile patents and supplier networks, and the prestige of being married to a Hartford. Your board has been pressuring you to settle down. Your grandmother has been vocal about wanting great-grandchildren. This solves both our problems. You want to marry me? Damian's voice was flat, disbelieving. The man you won't even take phone calls from. I want to save my company. You're the means to do that. Elena, 12 years ago I said terrible things to you. I've been trying to apologize ever since. I was a stupid, insecure kid trying to impress equally stupid friends. What I said was cruel and unforgivable, and I've regretted it every day since. There it was, the apology she'd imagined hearing 1,000 times. It meant nothing. I don't want your apologies, Mr. Cross. I want your money and your name on a marriage certificate. Everything else is irrelevant." Damien was quiet for a long moment. She watched him read through the contract, saw his expression shift from shock to something she couldn't quite identify. Finally, he looked up. "If I agree to this, I have conditions of my own, such as we live together, not separately. If we're going to convince people this marriage is real, we need to actually cohabitate." Elena nodded. "Separate bedrooms." "Agreed." "Second condition, we make genuine attempts to be civil to each other. I'm not asking for friendship, but basic courtesy. I can be civil." "And third," Damien leaned forward, "after the 2 years are up, if you want a divorce, you get it. No questions asked. But if either of us develops feelings during this arrangement, we agree to discuss it honestly before ending things." Elena almost laughed. "Feelings? For the man who'd humiliated her? Fine. Agreed." Damien pulled a pen from his desk drawer, signed the contract, slid it back to her. "We should set a wedding date. The sooner, the better for your timeline. This Friday. Courthouse. Minimal witnesses. This Friday." Damien stood, extended his hand again. "Then I guess we're engaged, Elena Hartford." This time, she shook it. His grip was firm, warm. She dropped his hand quickly. "This is purely business, Mr. Cross. Don't forget that." "I won't." But something in his eyes suggested he hoped she would. 3 days later, Elena stood in a private courthouse chamber, wearing a cream silk dress, no veil, no flowers. Her best friend Sophia stood beside her as witness. Damien's business partner Marcus stood beside him. Damien's grandmother Miranda sat in the front row, a mysterious smile on her elderly face. The judge pronounced them husband and wife. Damien leaned in to kiss her. For appearances, Elena told herself, and his lips were softer than she'd expected. She pulled away quickly. "Congratulations," he whispered. "Mrs. Cross." The name felt like a brand, a reminder of who she'd tied herself to and why. Outside the courthouse, photographers swarmed. The news had leaked somehow. "Mr. Cross, is it true you married Elena Hartford? Ms. Hartford, how long have you been dating? Is this a business merger or a love match?" Damien's arm went around her waist, pulling her close. "For the cameras. Only for the cameras. My wife and I appreciate your interest, but we'd like to keep our private life private," he said smoothly. "Thank you." They climbed into his waiting car. The moment the door closed, Elena shifted away from him. "Your penthouse or mine?" Damien asked. "Yours. It's bigger, more believable that I'd move into your space." "Our space now." Elena looked out the window at Manhattan passing by. "For 2 years. That evening, she stood in the guest bedroom of Damien's Upper East Side penthouse, surrounded by her hastily packed suitcases. The room was beautiful, floor-to-ceiling windows, king-size bed, marble bathroom, a cage made of luxury. A knock on her door. "Come in." Damien entered, still in his wedding suit, holding 2 glasses of champagne. "I thought we should toast. To our arrangement." Elena took the glass but didn't drink. "To business." "To business?" Damien echoed. He hesitated at the door. "Elena, I know you hate me. I understand why. I'm not asking you to change that. But thank you for trusting me with your father's company. This isn't trust, Mr. Cross. It's desperation. Damien, we're married now. You can call me Damien." "Fine. Damien." His name felt strange on her tongue. Was there anything else? He looked like he wanted to say something more, but instead shook his head. "Good night, Elena. If you need anything, my room is at the other end of the hall." "I won't need anything." After he left, Elena sat on the edge of the bed, still in her wedding dress, staring at the simple platinum band on her finger. In 2 years, she'd have her company safe and her revenge complete. Damien Cross had no idea what he'd agreed to. She'd make these 2 years uncomfortable enough that he'd remember, for the rest of his life, what it felt like to be made to feel small. But as she lay alone in the darkness, she couldn't stop thinking about the guilt in his eyes when he'd apologized, about the gentleness of that courthouse kiss. No, She couldn't afford to soften. Not toward him. This was war, and she intended to win. Elena woke to the smell of coffee. She'd been living in Damien's penthouse for exactly 1 week, and every morning was the same. She'd wake at 6, find fresh coffee waiting in a thermos outside her door with a small note. "Good morning, D." She'd throw the note away, drink the coffee, and leave for Hartford and Company before Damien emerged from his own room. This morning, however, Damien was already in the kitchen. He stood at the stove, cooking eggs, still in his workout clothes, athletic shorts, and a fitted t-shirt. Elena had successfully avoided seeing him in anything but business suits all week. The casual clothes made him look younger, more like the boy she remembered, more dangerous. "You're up early," she said, pouring herself coffee from the pot. "Board meeting at 8. Thought I'd actually eat breakfast for once." He glanced at her. "Want some eggs?" "I'll eat at the office." "Elena, you've been avoiding me for a week." "I've been busy saving my company." "Our company now, technically." Damien plated his eggs. "Sit, please." 5 minutes. Against her better judgment, Elena sat at the kitchen island. Damien pushed a plate toward her. Perfectly scrambled eggs, toast, fresh fruit. "I know you think I'm the enemy, but we're going to be living together for 2 years. We should at least be able to eat breakfast in the same room." Elena took a bite of eggs. They were delicious. She hated that they were delicious. "How's your father doing?" Damien asked. "Better. The doctors are optimistic." "Good. That's good." He studied her face. "You look tired." "Sterling has been aggressive. She's spreading rumors that our marriage is a sham designed to prevent acquisition, which it is, but we can't let people believe that. Then we need to be more visible as a couple." Damien pulled out his phone. "There's a charity gala this Saturday. Benefit for children's hospitals. We should attend together." Elena's stomach tightened. Public appearances meant playing the loving wife, meant touching him, smiling at him, pretending the sight of him didn't make her remember that terrible night. "Fine. I'll have my assistant coordinate with yours." "Elena." Damien set down his fork. "Can I ask you something?" "What?" "Why won't you even look at me? I mean, really look at me. You've barely made eye contact all week." She finally raised her eyes to his. "Because every time I do, I see that 19-year-old boy who made me feel worthless, who made me run crying from a ballroom, who made me hate myself so much I spent the next 2 years losing 60 pounds and building armor, so thick nobody could ever hurt me again." The pain in Damien's eyes was immediate and real. "I can't undo what I did," he said quietly, "but I'm not that boy anymore." "How convenient for you. You get to grow and change and feel better about yourself. I get to marry my childhood bully to save my family legacy. Is that what you think this is? Convenient for me?" Damien's voice rose slightly. "Elena, I've spent 12 years trying to contact you, trying to apologize. I've donated millions to anti-bullying charities in your name. I've gone to therapy to work through why I was such an insecure asshole as a teenager. I've done everything I can think of to become someone better, someone worthy of your forgiveness. I didn't ask you to do any of that. No, you didn't. I did it because I couldn't live with myself otherwise." He stood, taking his plate to the sink. "But you're right about one thing. This marriage is convenient for me. It's convenient because it means I get to spend 2 years proving to you that I've changed, even if you never believe it." He left the kitchen. A moment later, Elena heard his bedroom door close. She sat alone, staring at her untouched eggs, feeling something uncomfortable twist in her chest. Saturday night. Elena stood in front of her mirror, adjusting the emerald green gown she'd chosen for the gala. It was from Hartford and Company's luxury line, one of the few pieces they still produced in-house. Her mother would have loved it. A knock on her door. "Ready?" Damien's voice. Elena opened the door and froze. Damien stood in a perfectly tailored tuxedo, looking like he'd stepped out of a magazine. But it wasn't his appearance that stopped her. It was the way he looked at her, like she was breathtaking. "You look beautiful," he said softly. "Thank you. You clean up well yourself." In the car, Damien briefed her. There will be photographers, society reporters. We need to appear comfortable with each other. In love, ideally. I know how to play a part. I'm sure you do. He paused. But Elena, if this becomes too uncomfortable, if being close to me brings back bad memories, just squeeze my hand twice. I'll find an excuse to step away. The gesture surprised her. Why would you do that? Because causing you pain isn't something I want to do anymore, even accidentally. The gala was held at the Plaza Hotel's Grand Ballroom. Chandeliers dripped crystal. Manhattan's elite mingled in designer gowns and tuxedos. Elena felt Damien's hand settle on her lower back as they entered, warm to the silk of her dress. Mr. and Mrs. Cross. A reporter approached. Congratulations on your recent marriage. How did you two meet? Damien smiled. We've known each other since we were teenagers. Crossed paths at a charity event, actually, but we didn't reconnect until recently. And it was love at second sight. The reporter laughed. Something like that. Damien looked at Elena, and the warmth in his eyes seemed genuine. Elena is the most remarkable woman I've ever met. Smart, driven, compassionate. I'm the luckiest man here. Elena forced herself to smile. He's being modest. Damien has been incredibly supportive of Hartford and Company. We make a good team. They circulated through the ballroom. Damien introduced her to investors, business partners, members of his board. His hand never left her back, a constant warm pressure that was both steadying and unnerving. You're quite the power couple, one board member's wife gushed. Damien, you seem different. Happier. I am, Damien said, and Elena couldn't tell if he was acting. They were photographed together, dancing together. Damien's arms around her waist felt too familiar, too comfortable. When he leaned in close, she caught the scent of his cologne, cedar and something darker. You're good at this, she whispered. At pretending? His breath tickled her ear. At making people believe we're in love. Maybe I'm not pretending as much as you think. Before Elena could respond, a familiar voice cut through the crowd. Well, the happy couple. Victoria Sterling approached, predatory in a black gown that probably cost more than most people's cars. 50 years old, sharp-featured, with the ruthless eyes of a shark. Victoria. Damien's arm tightened around Elena's waist. Lovely to see you. Is it? I heard about your shotgun wedding. How romantic. Victoria's smile was venomous. Though I have to wonder about the timing. Hartford and Company facing hostile acquisition. And suddenly you're married to its CEO? Quite the coincidence. Not a coincidence, Elena said smoothly. Damien and I have been seeing each other for months. We just kept it private. Of course you did. Victoria sipped her champagne. I'm sure the SEC will be very interested in the details of your relationship timeline. Wouldn't want anyone to think this was a scheme to prevent legal acquisition. Damien stepped forward, his voice dropping to a dangerous register Elena had never heard from him. Be very careful, Victoria. Elena is my wife. That means she's under my protection. If you spread false rumors about our marriage or attempt to damage Hartford and Company through illegal means, Cross Industries will make it our personal mission to ensure you regret it. Are we clear? Victoria's smile faltered. Crystal. She swept away. Elena stared at Damien. He just threatened one of the most powerful women in New York. For her. You didn't have to do that, she said. Yes, I did. Nobody talks to my wife that way. Your fake wife. Damien looked at her, something intense in his dark eyes. The marriage certificate is real. The vows we took are real. The only fake thing here is this conversation where we pretend you're not my wife. He walked away toward the bar, leaving Elena standing alone in the middle of the ballroom, her heart racing for reasons that had nothing to do with Victoria Sterling. The rest of the evening passed in a blur. More photographs, more small talk, more moments where Damien's hand would brush hers, and Elena would feel that traitorous flutter in her chest. In the car home, neither spoke. Elena stared out the window at Manhattan's glittering skyline. Thank you, she finally said, for defending me. You didn't have to be so aggressive with Victoria. She insulted you. Of course I had to. Because of our arrangement. Because you're my wife. Damien turned to look at her. Elena, can I tell you something? Something honest. What? I wasn't planning a hostile takeover of Hartford and Company. I was planning an investment. Anonymous. Through a shell corporation. I've been watching your company for years. Seeing how hard you work. How much you care about your employees. I was going to offer capital to help you expand. I didn't want you to know it was me. I knew you'd refuse if you knew. Elena's world tilted. You were trying to help me? I've been trying to help you for 12 years. In every way I could without making you uncomfortable. Donations to causes you care about. Investments in companies you're partnered with. Anything to make up for what I did. His voice cracked slightly. You were 16 years old, Elena, a kid, and I was a cruel, insecure asshole who took out his own issues on you. I've lived with that guilt every single day. They'd arrived at the penthouse. The driver opened the door. Inside, they rode the elevator in silence. Elena's mind was spinning. Everything she believed about Damien's motivations, about his character, was crumbling. At her bedroom door, she paused. Damien? He turned. Yes. I need time to process this. Everything you've said. Take all the time you need. But as she closed herself in her room, Elena realized time was the one thing she didn't have. Because somewhere between the courthouse and tonight, somewhere between the coffee outside her door every morning and the way he defended her against Victoria Sterling, the enemy was starting to look like something else entirely. And that terrified her more than any hostile takeover ever could. You've just witnessed Elena begin to see cracks in her armor. Damien isn't the villain she thought he was. But can she forgive the boy who destroyed her, even if the man is trying to rebuild her? If you're hooked on this journey from revenge to redemption, smash that subscribe button for awesome stories. Hit like if you think Damien deserves a second chance. Comment. Could you marry someone who humiliated you as a teenager? Turn on notifications for next chapter, where Elena and Damien are forced to spend a romantic weekend in the Hamptons, and the walls between them start crumbling. This story is about to get emotional. 2 weeks into their marriage, Elena found herself in Damien's home office at midnight, both of them hunched over laptops, reviewing contracts. Victoria's moving faster than I expected, Elena said, rubbing her tired eyes. She's contacted 3 of our major suppliers, offering them 20% above market rate to switch to her. Then we counteroffer. I'll have Marcus reach out to our textile contact in Italy. Better quality, better terms. Damien made notes on his legal pad. What about the shareholders meeting next month? Most of the board is loyal to my father, but Sterling has been buying shares aggressively. If she gets to 30% before we stabilize, she can force a vote. They worked in silence for a few minutes. Elena snuck a glance at Damien. Sleeves rolled up, tie loosened, hair slightly mussed from running his hands through it. He looked tired but focused, dedicated. Why are you doing this? The question escaped before she could stop it. Damien looked up. Doing what? This. It's past midnight. You could be sleeping. Instead, you're here, helping me save a company that's technically a competitor to your portfolio. It's our company now. My investment means I have skin in the game. That's not it, though, is it? Damien set down his pen. No, it's not. He leaned back in his chair. You want honesty? I'm doing this because watching you fight for Hartford and Company, for those 300 employees, for your father's legacy, it's the most impressive thing I've ever seen. You're not just smart, Elena. You're principled. You could have sold to Victoria weeks ago, taken a massive payout, let the company be stripped for parts. But you didn't, because you actually care about people, not just profit. Of course I care. Those are real families depending on those jobs. I know, and I've spent 10 years running an investment firm that's all about the bottom line, hostile takeovers, profit maximization, asset stripping when necessary. He met her eyes. You're teaching me that there's a different way to do business, a better way. Elena didn't know what to say to that. Coffee? Damien stood. I'm making a fresh pot. Please. While he was in the kitchen, Elena looked around his office. She'd been in here several times now, but never really examined it. The degrees on the wall, Harvard Business School, like her. Photos of him with his parents. Both deceased now, according to the brief background her lawyer had compiled. A worn paperback of The Great Gatsby on his desk. "You like Fitzgerald?" she asked when he returned with 2 mugs. "My mother's favorite. She used to read it to me when I was sick as a kid." He handed her the coffee. Prepared exactly how she liked it, she realized. He'd been paying attention. The American dream and all its illusions seemed appropriate for someone like me. "What do you mean?" "I was born into wealth I didn't earn, given opportunities based on my last name, and spent my early 20s convinced I was better than everyone else because of circumstances of birth." Damien sat on the edge of his desk. Gatsby spent his whole life chasing an illusion. I spent mine being one. "You're harder on yourself than necessary." "Am I?" "Elena, I publicly humiliated a 16-year-old girl because my fragile ego couldn't handle rejection. That's not the kind of person who deserves to be let off easy." They drank their coffee in comfortable silence. It was strange, Elena thought, how natural this was becoming. Working late together, sharing space. Almost but not quite friendship. "We have a problem," Damien said, checking his phone. "My PR team just sent an alert. Victoria gave an interview to the Financial Times. She's questioning the legitimacy of our marriage, suggesting it's a business arrangement to prevent acquisition. The SEC might start asking questions." Elena's stomach dropped. "What do we do?" "We prove it's real, very publicly." He scrolled through his messages. "My team suggests a romantic weekend getaway. Somewhere we'd be photographed. The Hamptons, maybe. I have a beach house there." "A whole weekend?" "Separate bedrooms." Damien added quickly, "Just like here, but in public. We'd need to appear like an actual couple. Romantic dinners, beach walks, the kind of things newlyweds do." Elena's mind raced through the implications. A weekend alone with Damien. No buffer work or separate schedules. Actually spending time together. "When?" "This weekend. I'll have the house prepared." Friday afternoon, they drove out to the Hamptons in Damien's Mercedes. The beach house was stunning. Modern architecture, floor-to-ceiling windows facing the ocean, private beach access. "It's beautiful," Elena admitted, stepping onto the deck. "My parents bought it when I was 10. I haven't been here much since they died." Damien carried their bags inside. "Your room is upstairs, ocean view. I'll take the guest room on the ground floor." They settled in. Elena unpacked, changed into casual clothes, and ventured downstairs to find Damien in the kitchen. "I thought we could cook dinner together," he said. More authentic than ordering in. Plus the paparazzi my PR team tipped off should arrive around sunset for photos. "You're having us photographed?" "That's the point. We need to look like a real couple." They worked together preparing dinner. Grilled salmon, roasted vegetables, salad. Damien was surprisingly competent in the kitchen. Where did a billionaire CEO learn to cook? Elena asked, chopping tomatoes. "Boarding school. I was lonely. Didn't really fit in with the other rich kids. The kitchen staff let me help sometimes. Turns out I like creating something with my hands instead of just managing portfolios." He glanced at her. "What about you? Do you cook?" "My mother taught me before she died." Elena's throat tightened. She believed cooking for people was an act of love. "How old were you when you lost her?" 10. Breast cancer. My father threw himself into the business afterward. It was his way of coping. Mine was trying to be perfect, so he wouldn't lose me too. Damien's hand covered hers on the counter, brief and warm. "I'm sorry. Losing a parent that young, it changes you. You lost both of yours." "Car accident. I was 25. Drunk driver across a median." His voice was flat, controlled. "I inherited Cross Industries overnight. Wasn't ready. Spent the first year making terrible decisions and destroying relationships because I was drowning in grief and responsibility." They looked at each other across the kitchen island, really looked, and Elena saw something in his eyes she recognized. The same loss, the same loneliness, the same armor built from pain. "We should eat outside," she said, breaking the moment. "For the photos." They set up dinner on the deck as the sun began to set over the ocean. Right on cue, Elena spotted a photographer with a telephoto lens in the dunes. "He's here," she murmured. "Then we should give him something worth photographing." Damien stood, held out his hand. "Dance with me?" "There's no music." He pulled out his phone, started a playlist. Soft jazz filled the evening air. Elena took his hand, let him pull her close on the deck as the sun painted the sky orange and pink. His hand settled on her waist, hers on his shoulder. They swayed slowly. "This feels—" Elena started. "Real." Damien finished. She looked up at him. His dark eyes were intense, focused entirely on her. The ocean breeze ruffled his hair. In the golden light, he looked nothing like the cruel boy from that ballroom. He looked like someone she could... No. She stepped back. "I think we got enough photos. I should clean up dinner." That night, Elena couldn't sleep. She stood on her bedroom balcony, watching the waves crash against the shore, thinking about Damien's hand on her waist, about the way he'd looked at her like she was the only thing in the world worth seeing. "Can't sleep either?" She jumped. Damien stood on the deck below, looking up. "Too quiet. I'm used to the city. Want to walk on the beach?" She should say no, should maintain distance. But instead, she found herself nodding. They walked barefoot along the shore, waves lapping at their feet. The moon was full, casting silver light across the water. "Elena, can I tell you about that night? The real story." She didn't want to hear it, didn't want to risk having her anger diluted by explanations. But she nodded. "I saw you when you first arrived at the gala. You were standing by yourself near the dessert table, looking uncomfortable but trying to hide it. I thought you were beautiful. More than that, you looked kind, real, not like the other girls there, who were all trying so hard to be sophisticated." Elena remembered standing alone, feeling out of place, wishing she could disappear. "I worked up the courage to talk to you, asked if you wanted to dance. You looked at me like I was crazy and said no thanks. You didn't dance. Then you walked away." "I was terrified," Elena admitted. "You were older, confident, surrounded by friends. I thought you were making fun of me." "I wasn't. I was genuinely interested. But my friends saw the rejection, started ribbing me about striking out. I laughed it off, but inside I was humiliated." He stopped walking. "Later, when you spilled that champagne, it all came rushing back. The embarrassment, the wounded ego. And I lashed out in the cruelest way I could think of. Made you the joke before they could make me one. You destroyed me to protect yourself." "Yes, and I've hated myself for it ever since." His voice cracked. "Elena, I was a coward. An insecure, entitled coward. And you paid the price for my weakness." They stood facing each other on the moonlit beach. "I spent 2 years hating myself after that night," Elena said. "Lost 60 pounds. Built walls so thick nobody could ever hurt me again. Became someone who couldn't be mocked or dismissed. You became extraordinary. I became hard. You became strong. There's a difference." Damien took a step closer. "But Elena, you were already extraordinary. At 16, in that homemade dress, kind enough to help overworked catering staff even though you were a guest. You were more real than anyone else in that ballroom. That's what I saw. That's what scared me enough to destroy it." Elena felt tears burning her eyes. "I don't know if I can forgive you. I don't expect you to. I just want you to know the truth. And the truth is, I've spent 12 years trying to become someone worthy of a second chance I'll probably never get." He turned to walk back to the house. "Damien, wait." He stopped. "Thank you for telling me, for being honest. Always, with you, always." They walked back in silence. At the house, they parted ways to their separate rooms. But Elena lay awake for hours, replaying his words, remembering the guilt in his eyes, the genuine remorse. The boy who'd hurt her was gone. The question was, could she let go of her hate for him long enough to see the man he'd become? The next morning, Elena woke to the smell of coffee and pancakes. She found Damien on the deck, breakfast laid out, looking uncertain. "Peace offering?" he offered. "I wasn't sure if last night was too much." if I overshared. It wasn't. Elena sat down, accepted the coffee he poured. It was honest. I needed to hear it. They ate breakfast, watching the waves. The conversation stayed light. Books they'd read, places they'd traveled, dreams they'd had as children. I wanted to be a fashion designer, Elena admitted. Work for one of the big houses in Paris or Milan. But when my mother died, my father needed me to step into the business. Do you resent that? Sometimes. But Hartford and Company is in my blood. My great-grandfather started it with one loom and a dream. My grandfather expanded it. My father turned it into what it is today. It's not just a company. It's a family legacy. That's why you fight so hard for it. That's why I married you. The words hung between them. A reminder of what this was. A business arrangement. Nothing more. But when Damien's hand covered hers on the table, Elena didn't pull away. They spent the day exploring the town, playing the part of newlyweds for any watching cameras, holding hands, sharing ice cream, laughing at a street musician's terrible singing. And somewhere between the boutique shops and the Sunset Beach walk, Elena realized she wasn't acting anymore. That evening, back at the beach house, Damien built a fire in the outdoor fireplace. They sat on the deck, wine in hand, watching stars emerge. Elena, I need to tell you something. What? I'm falling in love with you. The words were quiet, serious. I know that wasn't part of our deal. I know you don't feel the same. But I promise you honesty, and that's the truth. These past few weeks, seeing you every day, working beside you, learning who you really are, I'm falling for you. Hard. Elena's heart hammered. Damien, you don't have to say anything. I'm not asking you to love me back. I just needed you to know, because I can't keep pretending this is only business for me. It stopped being business the moment you walked into my office with that proposal. He stood. I'll give you some space. Good night, Elena. After he left, Elena sat alone by the fire, her mind spinning. She should feel angry, betrayed. He'd changed the terms of their arrangement. But instead, she felt terrified. Because somewhere in the past few weeks, somewhere between the morning coffee and the late-night work sessions and his fierce defense of her against Victoria Sterling, Elena had started to feel something too. Something that felt dangerously like forgiveness. And maybe even more dangerous than that. Damien just confessed he's falling in love with Elena, but she's still carrying 12 years of hurt. Can forgiveness bloom where humiliation once lived? If you're emotionally invested in seeing if Elena can open her heart to the man who once broke it, subscribe to Awesome Stories right now. Smash that like button if you believe people deserve second chances. Comment. Have you ever forgiven someone who deeply hurt you? Turn on notification for next chapter, where a business crisis forces Elena to rely on Damien, and she discovers that sometimes the person who hurt you can become the person who saves you. The next chapter will change everything. Elena returned from the Hamptons determined to rebuild her walls. Damien's confession had shaken her. The realization of her own growing feelings had terrified her. She threw herself into work with renewed intensity. Morning meetings, afternoon calls with suppliers, evening reviews of financial statements. Anything to avoid thinking about the way Damien had looked at her by the firelight when he'd said he was falling in love. But avoiding Damien while living with him proved impossible. He was everywhere, making coffee in the morning, working late in his office, existing in her space with a patience that was somehow more devastating than any grand gesture would have been. "You're avoiding me again," he said one evening, a week after the Hamptons. They'd barely spoken beyond logistics and necessary pleasantries. "I'm busy." "You're scared." Elena looked up from her laptop. They were in his office. She'd been working there because it had better lighting, she told herself. Not because being near him had become oddly comforting. "I'm not scared." "Then why won't you even look at me? Why do you leave a room when I enter it? Why do you eat breakfast before I wake up and go to bed after I'm asleep?" Damien closed his own laptop. "I told you the truth in the Hamptons. I'm not taking it back. But I also promised I wouldn't pressure you. If you need space, I'll give it. But this, pretending I don't exist, that's not space. That's running. Maybe I'm allowed to run from the person who once made me want to disappear. You are. Absolutely, you are. His voice softened. But Elena, I'm not that person anymore. And I think you know that. I think that's what scares you. Before she could respond, her phone rang. Her father, Papa? It's late is everything. Bambina. Richard Hartford's voice was weak, strained. I'm at the hospital. My heart. They're saying I need surgery. Triple bypass. The stress, the company. I'm sorry, I tried to stay strong. Papa, don't apologize. Where are you? I'm coming now. She grabbed her purse, already heading for the door. Damien was right behind her. What happened? My father. Heart attack. He needs surgery. Elena's hands shook as she called for her driver. My car's already here. Come on. They drove through Manhattan at night, Damien exceeding every speed limit. He didn't ask questions, just drove while Elena sat frozen, gripping her phone, replaying every conversation with her father over the past weeks. Had she noticed he was struggling? Had she been so focused on saving the company that she'd missed him getting worse? At the hospital, Richard was already in pre-op. The doctors let Elena see him briefly. Papa. She took his hand, so much friendlier than she remembered. Mi amore. I'm sorry. The stress of the business, Victoria Sterling's attacks. I should have been stronger. Stop. None of this is your fault. Elena blinked back tears. You built something amazing. Let me protect it now. You focus on getting better. The company will be fine. I promise. Damien. Her father's eyes moved past her. You take care of my daughter. With my life, sir. They wheeled Richard away. Elena stood in the hallway, watching the doors close, feeling like the ground had disappeared beneath her feet. Damien's arms came around her from behind, steady and warm. He's strong. He'll make it through this. Elena turned into his chest and finally let herself cry. All the fear, all the stress of the past weeks, all the terror of losing her last parent. It poured out. And Damien held her, one hand in her hair, the other around her waist, not saying anything, just being there. The surgery took 6 hours. Damien stayed the entire time, brought Elena coffee she didn't drink, sat beside her in uncomfortable plastic chairs, made calls to push back his morning meetings, didn't leave even when she told him he didn't have to stay. When the surgeon finally emerged with good news, the surgery was successful. Richard would recover. Elena felt Damien's hand tighten around hers. He's going to be okay, the surgeon said. But he needs rest. No stress. His heart can't take it. Which meant no involvement with the company. No board meetings. No strategic decisions. Elena was completely on her own. 3 days later, with her father in recovery, Elena sat in her office at Hartford and Company staring at financial reports that made her stomach turn. Victoria Sterling had escalated hard. She'd successfully poached 2 of their biggest clients, offered 3 board members positions in her own company if they'd vote for the acquisition, spread rumors that Hartford and Company was on the verge of bankruptcy, which was becoming a self-fulfilling prophecy as nervous investors pulled out. Elena had 48 hours to present a restructuring plan to the board or face a vote that would force the sale. She'd been working for 36 hours straight. Her eyes burned, her head pounded, and she had no idea how to save this. A knock on her door. Go away, Sophia. I need to focus. Not Sophia. Damien entered carrying 2 bags from her favorite Italian restaurant. You haven't eaten in 12 hours. I checked with your assistant. I'm not hungry. Liar. He set down the food. Elena, you're running yourself into ground. Your father just had heart surgery. You need to take care of yourself. I need to save this company. You need to let me help you save this company. Damien pulled up a chair. That's why you married me, remember? For my business expertise and capital. So let me use it. Elena wanted to refuse, wanted to prove she could do this alone. But she was drowning, and Damien was offering a lifeline. Victoria has the votes, she admitted. 3 board members are voting for acquisition. That's enough to force a sale. Unless I can present something better. Then we present something better. Damien opened his laptop. Show me everything. your financials, your client contracts, your supplier agreements. All of it. They worked through the night. Damien was brilliant, seeing angles Elena had missed, making connections she hadn't considered. He called in favors from his own network, restructured debt, found new investors willing to commit capital. By dawn, they had a plan. This could work. Elena said, reviewing the final proposal. It's aggressive, but it could work. It will work. Damien's confidence was absolute, because we're not going to let Victoria Sterling destroy 80 years of your family's legacy. The board meeting was scheduled for 2 p.m. Elena presented their restructuring plan, with Damien beside her adding financial projections and investor commitments. The board members who'd been wavering started asking questions. Good questions. Interested questions. Victoria Sterling sat in the back, her expression growing darker with each slide. After 2 hours of presentation and debate, the vote was called. 7-3 in favor of Elena's restructuring plan. Hartford and Company would remain independent. Elena felt her knees weaken with relief. She'd done it. They'd done it. Outside the boardroom, Victoria cornered her. This isn't over. I'll find another way to acquire your company. Before Elena could respond, Damien stepped between them. You're done, Victoria. Cross Industries is now Hartford and Company's majority investor and strategic partner. That means any attempt to acquire them goes through me. And I promise you, I will make that process so expensive, so legally complex, and so publicly damaging to your reputation that you'll wish you'd walked away today. Are we clear? Victoria's face went white. You can't. I can, and I will. Touch Elena or her company again, and you'll find out exactly how ruthless I can be when someone threatens what's mine. Victoria left without another word. Elena turned to Damien. What's yours? You are. This company is. I told you in the Hamptons. I'm falling in love with you. That means I protect what's ours. By any means necessary. Damien, I don't. I know. You don't feel the same way. I'm not asking you to. But I need you to understand something. He took her hands. These past weeks, working beside you, watching you fight for this company and your father and those 300 employees, you are the most remarkable person I've ever known. And whether you ever love me back or not, I'm going to spend every day proving I'm someone worthy of standing beside you. Elena looked at their joined hands, at the man who'd stayed up all night to help her save her family's company, who defended her against Victoria, who made her coffee every morning and never asked for anything in return except the chance to prove he'd changed. The boy who'd hurt her was gone. The man standing before her was someone else entirely. Thank you, she whispered, for everything, for the Hamptons, for Night, for believing in me when I couldn't believe in myself. Always. She stood on her toes and kissed his cheek. Brief, chaste, but enough to make his breath catch. I need time, Damien. I need to figure out what I feel. But I promise you, I'm not running anymore. That's all I'm asking for. That night, Elena visited her father in the hospital. He was awake, looking better. Papa, we did it. The board voted for restructuring. Hartford and Company is safe. Richard smiled. I never doubted you, Bambina. You're stronger than I ever was. I had help. Damien, he's been incredible. He loves you. Even an old man can see that. I know. Elena sat on the edge of the hospital bed. Papa, I need to ask you something. That night at the gala, 12 years ago, when Damien said those terrible things, did you know? I knew something happened. You came home crying, wouldn't talk about it. Spent the next 2 years changing everything about yourself. Richard squeezed her hand. I should have pushed. Should have made you talk to me. But I was drowning in my own grief over your mother. I failed you. You didn't fail me. You taught me to be strong. I taught you to build walls. There's a difference. He studied her face. Elena, I'm going to tell you something your mother told me when I was young and stupid. Love isn't about finding someone perfect. It's about finding someone whose imperfections you can live with. Someone who makes you better than you are alone. Damien has spent weeks proving he's that person. The question is, are you brave enough to let yourself believe it? Elena left the hospital with her father's words echoing in her mind. Back at the penthouse, she found Damien in his office, still working despite the late hour. "You should sleep," she said from the doorway. He looked up, smiled. "So should you. Long day." "Damien, can I tell you something?" "Anything." "I'm scared. Terrified, actually. Because somewhere between the wedding in the Hamptons and tonight, I started to feel things I swore I'd never feel for you. And that terrifies me more than Victoria's Sterling or hostile takeovers or anything else." Damien stood slowly. "What kind of things?" "The kind that make me notice when you're not in the room. The kind that make me drink the coffee you leave outside my door because it tastes better when you make it. The kind that make me feel safe when you're there and lost when you're not." She took a breath. "I'm not ready to call it love. Not yet. But I'm not running anymore either." "Elena!" "Let me finish. You hurt me 12 years ago. That pain shaped me, hardened me, made me who I am. Part of me will always carry that. But the man standing in front of me now, the one who saved my father's company, who stayed at the hospital for 6 hours, who makes me coffee and asks about my day and looks at me like I'm the only thing in the world worth seeing, that man I could fall for if I'm brave enough." Damien crossed the room in 3 strides, stopped inches from her. "Be brave with me, Elena. Please. I know I don't deserve it, but I swear to you, I will spend every day earning it." She reached up, touched his face. He leaned into her palm, eyes closing. "Okay," she whispered. "Okay." When they kissed, it was different from the courthouse peck or the stage Hamptons moment. This was real, honest, full of promise and fear and hope all tangled together. They pulled apart slowly. Damien rested his forehead against hers. "What happens now?" he asked. "Now we figure this out. Together. No more separate bedrooms. No more pretending. We try this for real." "And the 2-year arrangement?" "Forget the arrangement. If we're doing this, we're doing it because we choose to, not because of the contract." Elena took his hand, led him upstairs. For the first time since their wedding, they fell asleep in the same bed, his arms around her, her head on his chest. 2 people who'd been broken separately, trying to heal together. The boy who'd hurt her was gone. The man who loved her was here. And Elena was finally brave enough to let him stay. 6 months after their wedding, Elena woke up in Damien's arms and realized something had shifted. It wasn't a single moment. It was 1,000 small ones. The way he'd learned her coffee order without being told. How he'd rearranged his schedule to attend every one of her father's doctor appointments. The quiet pride in his eyes when she closed a major deal with a European fashion house. The way he'd held her through nightmares about losing her mother. How he'd made her laugh when the stress of restructuring Hartford and Company threatened to drown her. The morning he'd surprise her with tickets to see her favorite designer's runway show. Love, Elena realized, wasn't a lightning bolt. It was a sunrise, gradual, inevitable, beautiful. And she was completely, terrifyingly in love with Damien Cross. "You're staring at me," Damien murmured, eyes still closed. "I can feel it. Just thinking. About how I didn't expect this." He opened his eyes. "This, us, being happy. Actually wanting to wake up next to you." Damien smiled, pulled her closer. "Best unexpected outcome of my life." They lay in comfortable silence until Elena's phone buzzed. A reminder. Oh, God, the gala's tonight. What gala? The Manhattan Summer Charity Gala. The same venue where... She trailed off. "Where I said those things to you." Damien's expression grew serious. "You don't have to go. We can skip it." "No, I want to go." Elena sat up. "I need to go. For me." That evening, Elena stood in front of her mirror, adjusting the emerald gown she'd chosen. Custom-made by Hartford and Company's new luxury line. The division she'd launched 3 months ago with Damien's investment and support. A knock on their bedroom door. Not her bedroom anymore. Their bedroom. The shift had happened gradually, naturally, his clothes mixing with hers in the closet, her books on his nightstand. 2 lives blending into one. "Come in." Sophia entered, stunning in a silver gown. You look incredible, Bells. I feel like I'm going to throw up. Returning to the scene of the crime? Something like that. Elena took a breath. Sophia, I need to tell you something. I think I'm in love with him. Her best friend smiled. I know. I've known for months. How? Because you look at him the way he's looked at you since the day you walked into his office. Sophia squeezed her hand. The question is, have you told him? Not yet. I'm scared. Of what? Of everything. Of this being real and then losing it. Of letting my guard down completely. Of being happy? Sophia finished. Bells, you spent 12 years punishing yourself for something that wasn't your fault. Damien humiliated you. Yes. But you've been carrying that humiliation around like armor. Maybe it's time to put it down. Downstairs, Damien waited in a tuxedo that made Elena's breath catch. He looked up as she descended the stairs, and the expression on his face, pure awe, made her feel beautiful in a way that had nothing to do with the dress. You're stunning, he said, offering his arm. You clean up pretty well yourself. In the car, Damien seemed nervous. His knee bounced. A tell Elena had learned meant he was anxious about something. What's wrong? Nothing. Just, I know tonight might be hard for you, being back there. If at any point you want to leave, just say the word. I'll be fine, especially with you there. The Plaza Hotel's grand ballroom was exactly as Elena remembered. Crystal chandeliers, marble floors, the same oppressive weight of old money and older judgments. But this time, she walked in differently, head high, hand in Damien's. CEO of a successful company, not the insecure 16-year-old in a homemade dress. Elena, Damien. Victoria Sterling approached, her smile venomous as ever. How lovely to see the happy couple. Still married, I see. I lost money on that bet. Some people bet on love failing. Damien said smoothly, we prefer to invest in it succeeding. Throughout the evening, they circulated. Elena introduced Damien to old family friends. He introduced her potential investors. They moved through the crowd as a unit, comfortable and connected. Want to dance? Damien asked as the orchestra began playing. On the dance floor in his arms, Elena felt something settle in her chest. I need to tell you something, she said. What? I love you. Damien stopped moving, stared at her. What? I'm in love with you. Completely, terrifyingly, and I needed to tell you here, in this ballroom, where 12 years ago I thought my world ended. I needed to tell you that you didn't destroy me that night. You just postponed us. Damien's eyes were bright. Elena, I'm not finished. That boy who said those cruel things? He's gone. The man standing in front of me. The one who worked all night to save my company. Who held me at the hospital. Who makes me coffee every morning and looks at me like I hung the moon. That man I love. That man I choose. Every day. Forever. Forever. If you'll have me. Damien kissed her in the middle of the dance floor, in front of everyone, not caring who saw. When they broke apart, the ballroom had gone quiet. Everyone was watching. Damien turned to face the crowd, keeping Elena close. 12 years ago, in this room, I said the cruelest words to the woman who would become my wife. I called her a charity case, mocked her dress, made her feel worthless. It was the most shameful moment of my life, and I've spent 12 years trying to become someone worthy of her forgiveness. The crowd murmured. Elena squeezed his hand. Elena Hartford Cross is the strongest, smartest, most extraordinary person I've ever known. She saved her family's company. She gave me a second chance I didn't deserve. She taught me that real strength isn't about wealth or power. It's about integrity, compassion, and courage. He turned to Elena. And she just told me she loves me, which makes me the luckiest man in this room, maybe in the world. Applause rippled through the ballroom. Genuine this time. Warm. They danced the rest of the night, oblivious to everyone else. Later, on the drive home, Elena's phone buzzed. A text from her father. Saw the photos from the gala. You looked happy, Bambina. Really happy. Your mother would be proud of who you've become. I know I am. Good news? Damien asked. The best. Elena leaned against his shoulder. Take me home. Our home. Our home. 3 months later, Elena stood in the Hartford and Company showroom, unveiling their new luxury collection to buyers and press. The line was called Renaissance, a tribute to transformation and second chances. Each piece told a story of becoming, of evolving, of turning pain into beauty. Damien stood in the back, watching with pride as Elena commanded the room. Afterward, they celebrated with champagne and her father, who made a full recovery and now served as chairman emeritus, offering wisdom without the stress. To my daughter, Richard toasted, who saved the family business and found herself a family in the process. To second chances, Damien added, his eyes on Elena. To love that heals, Elena finished. 6 months after that, Elena and Damien stood in the same courthouse where they'd first married, this time surrounded by friends and family. Why are we doing this again? Sophia asked, fixing Elena's veil, real lace this time, delicate and beautiful. Because the first time was business. This time is love. They renewed their vows with truth instead of contracts. Promised forever instead of 2 years. Kissed as real husband and wife, not business partners. The reception was at the Plaza Hotel Grand Ballroom. Full circle. Elena wore a gown she designed herself. Ivory silk with emerald accents, a tribute to that cornflower blue dress her mother had made. Damien wore his tuxedo with a handkerchief in Hartford and Company fabric. During their first dance, as husband and wife the second time, Elena looked up at him. No regrets, she asked. Only that I wasted 12 years we could have had together. We weren't ready 12 years ago. We needed to become who we are now. Then I regret nothing. He spun her gently. Elena Cross, you are the love of my life. The answer to questions I didn't know I was asking. The home I didn't know I was searching for. That's very poetic for a venture capitalist. You bring out my romantic side. Halfway through reception, someone bumped into Elena carrying a champagne tray. The glasses wobbled. Champagne splashed. Elena and Damien both froze. Then they looked at each other and started laughing. It's fine, Elena said to the mortified waiter. Really? Just champagne. Damien pulled her close, despite the dampness. See? Not the end of the world. Not even close. As the evening wound down, Elena found herself on the ballroom balcony, looking out over Manhattan. Damien joined her, slipping his jacket around her shoulders against the autumn chill. Penny for your thoughts? Just thinking about that 16-year-old girl who ran out of this ballroom crying, wishing I could tell her it all works out. What would you tell her? That the boy who hurt her becomes the man who loves her. That pain isn't permanent. That sometimes the worst thing that happens to you leads to the best thing in your life. She turned to face him. That forgiveness is terrifying but worth it. I love you, Elena Cross. I love you too, Damien Cross. Even though you spilled champagne on my wedding dress. That was 12 years ago. And tonight, the waiter spilled it on both of us, remember? They laughed together, the sound carrying across the Manhattan night. 5 years later, Elena and Damien returned to the Plaza Hotel for another charity gala. This time, they brought their 3-year-old daughter, Sophia, named for Elena's best friend and Damien's mother. Hartford and Cross, the merged company born from their partnership, was now one of the most successful textile and investment firms in the country. Ethical business practices, employee-first policies, 3,000 jobs across 6 countries. The company that had almost been destroyed by hostile takeover was now thriving because 2 people chose cooperation over competition, love over hate, forgiveness over grudges. Mama, why are we here? Sophia asked, tugging on Elena's dress, from Hartford and Cross's children's line. Because this is where Mama and Papa's story began. When Papa was mean to you, Elena glanced at Damien, who looked uncomfortable. They'd age-appropriately explained his teenage mistake, wanting Sophia to understand that people could change and grow. Yes, when Papa was mean, but also where he learned to be kind, where he learned that words matter and people matter and love matters. And now you love Papa. So much. Sophia nodded solemnly. Good. Papa makes good pancakes. Damien laughed, scooping up his daughter. High praise. As the gala continued, a teenager approached Elena nervously. Mrs. Cross, I'm sorry to bother you, but I'm a huge fan of Hartford and Cross. I want to be a fashion designer someday, but my family can't afford design school, and What's your name? Elena asked gently. Maya. Well, Maya. Hartford and Cross has a scholarship program for aspiring designers. Would you be interested in applying? The girl's eyes went wide. Really? Really? Email me Monday. We'll figure it out. Elena handed her a business card. After Maya left, practically floating, Damien pulled Elena close. You just made that kid's year. Someone once told me that the best way to heal from pain is to prevent others from experiencing it. So I'm trying. You're extraordinary. You've mentioned that once or twice. They danced as the evening stretched on, Sophia asleep on Damien's shoulder. A family built from broken pieces, glued together with forgiveness and time and love that refused to quit. Do you ever think about it? Elena asked. That night, what would have happened if you'd been kinder? All the time. But then I realized, if I'd been kinder, maybe we would have dated at 19 and 25. Maybe it would have burned out. Maybe we needed to become who we are now to make this work. Maybe, or maybe you're just rationalizing your teenage jerkiness. Probably that too. He kissed her temple. But I got you in the end. And our daughter. And a company we built together. And a life I never imagined possible. So if I could go back and change that night, prevent that pain, I don't know if I would. Because it led to this. Damien Cross. That's the worst romantic speech I've ever heard. What I'm trying to say is, I know what you're trying to say. And I agree. We needed our journey. Even the painful parts. Especially the painful parts. They made us us. As midnight approached, they prepared to leave. Elena took one last look at the ballroom where her life had changed twice. Once when it broke, once when it healed. Ready to go home? Damien asked. Home. Elena agreed, because home wasn't the penthouse or the beach house or Hartford and Cross headquarters. Home was the man holding their sleeping daughter, looking at Elena like she was his whole world. Home was forgiveness earned through years of consistent love. Home was the beautiful life they'd built from the ashes of a cruel moment. The insult that had almost destroyed her had become the foundation of the love that saved them both. And as they walked out into the Manhattan night, Elena realized that sometimes the greatest revenge isn't making someone pay for their mistakes. Sometimes it's letting them spend a lifetime making up for it, and loving them anyway. The end. From a cruel insult to eternal love, Elena married the man who humiliated her as a teenager to save her family's company, and discovered that the boy who broke her heart became a man who healed it. Damien spent 12 years earning her forgiveness through actions, not words, defended her company, protected her father, and proving every day he'd changed. She walked into that marriage planning revenge, but found redemption instead. If the story about second chances, earned forgiveness, and love that transforms moved your heart, subscribe to Awesome Stories. Smash that like button if you believe people can change and deserve second chances. Comment your thoughts. Could you forgive someone who publicly humiliated you? Have you ever given someone a second chance and been glad you did? Share this story with anyone who needs to hear that the person who hurt you most can become the person who loves you best. Thank you for experiencing Elena and Damien's journey from cruelty to devotion, from business arrangement to real marriage, from hate to forever love. The best revenge is living well and loving better.